I'm too curvy for a mafia boss, Leonard. I'm not the kind of woman people expect to see on your arm. Hannah Baker's voice broke in the dimly lit study of the Hamilton estate. She stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself like armor, unable to meet his eyes. The words had haunted her for years, but saying them out loud to him felt like tearing open an old wound. Leonard Hamilton didn't do emotional displays. The 42-year-old head of the Hamilton crime family had built an empire through calculated decisions and an iron will that made rival bosses negotiate from positions of fear. His tailored three-piece suits, commanding presence, and the network of loyal soldiers who controlled the city's underground spoke of a man who never showed weakness. He had buried a treacherous wife, outmaneuvered federal investigations, and never once let anyone see him vulnerable. Until Hannah walked into his daughter's life. 6 months ago, Hannah had answered a discreet ad. Nanny needed. Must have heart. High pay. Discretion required. She'd been desperate, just fired from her corporate job for not fitting the company image, which was code for not being a size 4. At 32, she'd heard every variation of, "You're not what we're looking for," that existed. But she'd never expected to end up here, in the home of the city's most feared man, caring for his silent, observant daughter Angel, who hadn't spoken more than 10 words since her mother's death. The rejection that had brought her to this moment still burned. 3 weeks ago, at a charity gala Leonard had insisted she attend, a socialite in a designer gown had looked Hannah up and down with barely concealed disgust. "Leonard Hamilton has really lowered his standards," the woman had whispered, just loud enough for Hannah to hear. "I suppose when you need a nanny, you can't be picky about appearances. But bringing her to a society event? How embarrassing." Hannah had fled to the ladies' room, mascara running, convinced she was a liability to the powerful man who'd somehow become her employer, her protector, and the dangerous complication her heart had no business wanting. Now, standing in his study at midnight, she was trying to do the right thing. Trying to leave before she humiliated him further. Before Angel got too attached to someone the world would never accept as worthy of the Hamilton name. "I'm not the kind of woman who belongs in your world," Hannah continued, her voice barely a whisper. "Angel deserves better. Someone the other families will respect. Someone who looks the part. I'm too much. Too curvy. Too ordinary. Too." "Stop." Leonard's voice cut through her spiral like a blade. He moved from behind his desk with the predatory grace that made grown men step aside. When he reached her, he didn't touch her, not yet. He just stood close enough that she could smell his cologne, could feel the heat of him. "Do you know what I see when I look at you, Hannah?" She couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. "I see the woman who made my daughter laugh for the first time in 8 months. The woman who reads to her every night, who braids her hair with patience I've never witnessed, who turned my cold, empty house into something that feels like a home." His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "I see the only person in my entire organization who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong, who fights for Angel like she's her own, who has more strength in her little finger than every one of those hollow, perfect socialites combined." Hannah's tears spilled over. "But they all think." "I don't care what they think." Leonard reached up, wiping her tears with his thumb. "My late wife was everything society expected. Perfect figure. Perfect pedigree. Perfect smile." His jaw tightened. "She was also trying to sell my family's secrets to our enemies. She saw Angel as an inconvenience. A prop for photo opportunities. Nothing more." Hannah's breath caught. "I didn't hire you because I needed a nanny, Hannah. I hired you because my daughter looked at you for 5 seconds and smiled. Because you have something my world has beaten out of everyone else, genuine warmth. A heart that hasn't been frozen by this life." He stepped closer, his hand moving to cup her face. "You think you're too curvy for a man like me? You're wrong. You're just too big for the small-minded people who've never understood that real power isn't about perfection. It's about having something worth protecting." Hannah looked up at him, searching for the lie, the pity, the inevitable rejection. But all she saw was fierce certainty. "But the way they look at me," she tried again. "Let them look." Leonard's voice turned cold, deadly. Let them whisper. Because the woman who mocked you at that gala? I just bought out her family's debt. She'll be bankrupt by morning. And anyone else who wants to question my choices can have the same conversation. Hannah's eyes widened. Leonard, you can't. I can. I will. And I have. He leaned in, his forehead nearly touching hers. You're not too curvy for a boss, Hannah. You're too good for the world I live in. But if you'll have me, if you'll stay, I'll spend the rest of my life proving you're exactly what I've been searching for. From the doorway, a small voice interrupted. Please don't leave, Miss Hannah. They both turned. Angel stood there in her nightgown, tears streaming down her young face, looking more terrified than Hannah had ever seen her. You're not too big, Angel whispered. You're just too big for their small hearts. And you're perfect for us. Hannah's knees buckled. Leonard caught her, held her, while his daughter ran across the room and wrapped her arms around them both. And for the first time in her life, Hannah Baker felt like she might actually fit somewhere. If this one pulled you in, please subscribe and stay with the channel. More stories like this are coming. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected everything. Hannah could see herself in the glass. Navy blazer stretched across her curves, pencil skirt that she'd tugged down 3 times during the presentation, hair pulled back in what she'd hoped looked professional. She'd practiced her pitch for the senior analyst position for 2 weeks. Known every number, every projection, every answer to every question they might ask. Thank you, Ms. Baker. That'll be all. Patricia Chun, the HR director, didn't look at her when she said it. None of them did. They'd looked at her slides, at their phones, at the table, anywhere but at the woman who just delivered a flawless presentation on how to save the company $3 million in operational costs. Hannah gathered her materials with hands that wanted to shake. When should I expect to hear back? We'll be in touch. Patricia's smile was the kind reserved for people you were about to disappoint. Actually, Hannah, if you could stay a moment? The 3 male executives filed out, still not making eye contact. The door clicked shut with the finality of a coffin lid. Patricia folded her hands on the table. Your presentation was very thorough. Thank you. But I'm afraid we've decided to go in a different direction for the senior analyst role. Hannah had heard these words before. Different versions, same meaning. May I ask why? My numbers were. Your numbers were fine, Hannah. This isn't about competence. Patricia paused, choosing her words with surgical precision. It's about fit. The senior analyst position requires significant client-facing responsibilities. Presentations to board members. Networking events. Representing our company to high-profile investors. The room had gotten very quiet. Hannah could hear the air conditioning, the distant sound of phones ringing in other offices, the pounding of her own heart. We need someone who fits our corporate image, Patricia continued. Someone who looks the part. You understand. Hannah understood perfectly. She'd understood since she was 16 and her mother had said, maybe if you lost some weight, boys would notice you. She'd understood when her college roommate told her, you have such a pretty face, it's a shame about the rest. She'd understood when her ex-boyfriend had introduced her to his parents as my girlfriend. She's working on herself. I see, Hannah said quietly. Is there anything else? Patricia had the decency to look uncomfortable. We can keep you in your current junior position, of course. You're very good at behind-the-scenes work. Just not the face of the company. Not the face. Because her face came attached to a body that didn't fit into the glass box of acceptable professional presence. Hannah left the building at 3:47 p.m. with a cardboard box containing her desk plant, a coffee mug that said nevertheless she persisted, and the professional certification she'd earned by studying nights for 6 months. By 4:15, she'd received an email thanking her for her contributions and informing her that her position was being restructured. Fired. The word tasted like metal. That night, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror in her apartment, still wearing the navy blazer, mascara smudged from tears she'd refused to cry in the office. The mirror had seen this before. Different outfits, same shame. She remembered being 12, her aunt pinching her waist at a family gathering. If you're not careful, no man will ever want you. She remembered prom, shopping for a dress, the saleswoman saying loudly to her coworker, "We don't carry her size." She remembered every diet, every gym membership. Every morning she'd looked in this same mirror and promised herself that today would be different. Today she'd be smaller, better, acceptable. The mirror reflected the truth she'd been running from her entire life. She was never going to be what they wanted, and she was tired of trying. If you enjoyed this story and felt the tension, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. And more Mafia stories are on the way. Now let's dive in fully. The Hamilton estate sat behind iron gates that looked designed to keep out armies. Hannah's rideshare driver wouldn't go past the entrance. "I don't do business with that family," he'd muttered, pulling away the second her feet touched the ground. She stood at the intercom for a full minute before pressing the button. The ad had been strange, posted on a private domestic staffing board. No agency, no references required. Nanny needed. Must have heart. High pay. Discretion required. Most people would have seen red flags. Hannah had seen her last chance. The gates opened silently. The walk up the curved driveway took 10 minutes. The house, no mansion, was all stone and Gothic windows, the kind of place that appeared in movies about dangerous men who ruled cities from shadows. Gardens lined the path, immaculately maintained but somehow cold, beautiful and untouchable. A woman in her 50s answered the door. "Miss Baker." "Yes. I'm here for the." "Follow me." No small talk. No welcome. Just efficient footsteps across marble floors that echoed like gunshots. They passed rooms that looked like museum exhibits, furniture too expensive to sit on, art too valuable to enjoy. Everything pristine. Everything empty. The study smelled like leather and old books and something darker Hannah couldn't name. Power, maybe. Or danger. Leonard Hamilton stood behind a massive desk, reading a file that Hannah suspected contained every detail of her life. He didn't look up. "Sit." Not an invitation. A command. Hannah sat. He was younger than she'd expected. Early 40s, dark hair slicked back, wearing a three-piece suit that probably cost more than her rent. Handsome in a way that made you think of wolves. Sharp features. Harder eyes. The kind of man who made decisions that ruined lives before breakfast. "You were fired 3 days ago." He still hadn't looked at her. "Corporate restructuring. That's the official reason." "Yes." "The unofficial reason?" Hannah's throat tightened. "They said I didn't fit the corporate image." "Meaning?" "Meaning I don't look like what they wanted." Finally he looked up. His gaze moved over her with clinical assessment, not leering, not judgmental, just cataloging. Hannah lifted her chin. She'd come here because she had nothing left to lose. She wouldn't shrink now. "My daughter hasn't spoken more than 10 words since her mother died 8 months ago," Leonard said. "I've had 6 nannies. The longest lasted 3 weeks. She drove one to quit by locking her in the pool house. Another left crying after 2 days because Angel wouldn't acknowledge her existence." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm not looking for someone who fits an image. I'm looking for someone who can reach a broken child." He closed the file. "Your qualifications are irrelevant. Your appearance is irrelevant. I don't care what you look like. I care whether my daughter will let you in." Before Hannah could respond, the study door opened. A small girl stood in the doorway. 8, maybe 9 years old, with light brown hair and eyes that had seen too much. She wore a navy dress that looked expensive and uncomfortable. Her face was carefully blank, the expression of someone who'd learned that showing emotion was dangerous. "Angel," Leonard said, his voice shifting to something almost gentle. "This is Ms. Baker. She's here about the nanny position." The girl said nothing. Didn't move. Hannah didn't think. She just reacted to the hollowness in those young eyes, the same hollowness she'd seen in her own mirror 3 nights ago. "Hi, Angel. You don't have to talk to me if you don't want to." Hannah pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse. "But I thought you might like this." I used to fold these when I was sad. She'd made the origami crane that morning from the classified section of the newspaper. Habit from childhood. Her therapist had taught her the folds when Hannah was 9 and drowning in her parents' divorce. Angel's eyes flicked to the paper bird. Something shifted in her expression. Just a crack in the armor. She walked forward slowly, took the crane with careful fingers, and looked up at Hannah for the first time. Then she smiled. It was small, barely there, but real. When Hannah glanced back at Leonard, his cold gaze had softened into something that looked like hope. When can you start? He asked. Hannah moved into the Hamilton estate on a Tuesday. Her entire life fit into 3 suitcases and a box of books. The room they gave her was bigger than her old apartment. Bay windows overlooking the gardens, a 4-poster bed that looked like it belonged in a castle, an ensuite bathroom with marble everything. Angel's room was at the end of the hall. The door was always closed. For the first 3 days Hannah barely saw her. Angel appeared for meals like a ghost, silent, eating mechanically, disappearing the moment she was finished. She wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't respond to questions. The only sign she was listening was the slight tilt of her head when Hannah spoke. Give her time, Leonard had said. Or don't. The others gave up. But Hannah recognized what she saw in Angel's careful blankness. She'd worn the same mask for years. Different reasons, same result. A child learning to make herself invisible because visibility meant pain. On the 4th morning, Hannah knocked on Angel's door at 7 a.m. No answer. Angel? I'm making pancakes. I thought maybe you could help me. I'm terrible at flipping them and I always burn the edges. Silence. I'll leave the door open if you want to come down. No pressure. Hannah went to the massive kitchen and started pulling out ingredients. The cook had the day off. Hannah had checked the schedule specifically. She needed this to be just the 2 of them. She was whisking batter when she heard small footsteps on the marble. Angel stood in the doorway wearing pink pajamas, her hair tangled from sleep. She was holding the origami crane, creased from being carried everywhere. Good morning, Hannah said, not making a big deal of her presence. I have a very important question. Do you like chocolate chips in your pancakes or on top? Angel's lips pressed together. For a moment, Hannah thought she'd retreat. Then, so quietly it was almost a whisper. Both. Hannah's heart stuttered. First real word directed at her. Both is an excellent choice. Very sophisticated. She pulled out the chocolate chips. Want to help me pour? Angel approached the counter slowly, like she was testing whether this was safe. Hannah handed her the bag and held the bowl steady while small hands carefully tipped chocolate chips into the batter. Perfect amount. You're a natural. The tiniest smile ghosted across Angel's face. They cooked in comfortable silence. While Hannah cooked, Angel watched with the intensity of someone memorizing every movement. When the first pancake hit the pan, Hannah deliberately let it start to burn. Oh no, I told you I was bad at this. Can you help me flip it? Angel took the spatula with serious concentration. The pancake flipped perfectly. You're way better at this than me, Hannah said. I might need to hire you as my assistant chef. Daddy says we already have a chef. Second sentence. Hannah kept her voice casual. True. But he's not here right now. So you're promoted to head chef of Secret Morning Pancakes. Secret. The best pancakes are always secret. Everyone knows that. Angel considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. Okay. They made a stack of 12 pancakes. Angel insisted on arranging them in a tower on a single plate. They sat at the kitchen island, not the formal dining room where meals were usually served, and ate with their hands, syrup dripping everywhere. Miss Hannah. Yes. Are you going to leave like the others? The question was asked in the same tone Angel might ask about the weather. Casual. But her knuckles were white around her fork. Hannah set down her own fork and looked directly at the little girl. No. I'm not going to leave. They all said that. I know. But I mean it. Want to know why? Angel nodded, not quite believing but desperately wanting to. Because I know what it feels like when people leave. And I know what it feels like when people stay even when it's hard. I'm a stayer, Angel. Not a leaver. Angel studied her face for a long moment, searching for the lie. Whatever she found there made her shoulders relax. Can we make pancakes again tomorrow? Every morning if you want. Okay. Angel took another bite, then added, and Miss Hannah? I'm a stayer too. Hannah had to look away to hide the tears. This broken little girl, who'd lost her mother and been abandoned by a parade of temporary caretakers, was choosing to believe, choosing to try. Then we're a good team, Hannah managed. The best team, Angel agreed. And just like that, the silence broke. Hannah learned about Leonard's world through fragments. A black SUV arriving at midnight. Men in expensive suits speaking in clipped sentences. Phone calls conducted in Italian that ended with someone on the other line sounding terrified. Rooms in the mansion she was told never to enter. Conversations that stopped the moment she walked past. She learned not to ask questions. Learned which hallways to avoid after 9 p.m. Learned that the gardeners weren't really gardeners and the business associates who visited weren't really associates. But she also learned that Leonard came home every night at 7 to have dinner with Angel. That he read his daughter bedtime stories in a voice that lost its edge. That he kept every drawing Angel made in a locked drawer in his study like they were classified documents. 3 weeks in, Hannah was reading to Angel in the library when she heard shouting from Leonard's study. Not angry shouting. Commanding. The kind of voice that expected instant obedience. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, I stopped being reasonable. A pause. Then, I don't make threats. I make promises. The call ended. Footsteps approached. Hannah kept reading, pretending she hadn't heard. But Angel had gone still against her side. Leonard appeared in the doorway, tension radiating from every line of his body. Then he saw them. Hannah and Angel curled up together on the leather sofa. A book about dragons spread across their laps, and something in his expression shifted. Daddy, Angel said, the first time Hannah had heard her speak to him voluntarily. Miss Hannah does all the voices different. Want to hear? The tension drained from his shoulders. Show me. Angel repeated a passage Hannah had just read, mimicking her dramatic interpretation. Leonard sat in the armchair across from them, watching his daughter be animated, be alive, and Hannah saw it clearly for the first time. Loneliness. This powerful, dangerous man who commanded an empire was lonely. 2 days later, the household staff was having afternoon tea in the kitchen, while Hannah prepared Angel's snack. She'd learned to time it when they were on break, less judgment that way. I don't understand why Mr. Hamilton keeps her. The housekeeper, Margaret, said in a voice pitched just loud enough to carry. She's hardly what you'd expect in a household like this. Perhaps he feels sorry for her. The butler, James, replied. Charity case and all. Charity would be a donation, not having her live here. I'm just saying when clients visit, it's awkward. She doesn't exactly project the right image. Hannah's hand stilled on the apple she was slicing. The knife felt very heavy. What image would that be? Leonard's voice came from the doorway. Ice cold. Lethal. The kitchen went silent. Margaret paled. James straightened like he'd been electrocuted. Mr. Hamilton, I didn't mean. What image? Leonard repeated, each word precise as a scalpel. Does my household need to project? We just thought. You thought my employee's appearance was your concern? He stepped into the kitchen and grown adults shrank back. You thought it was appropriate to discuss her body in my home? To question my decisions? No, sir. I apologize. You're fired. Both of you. You have 1 hour to collect your things and leave the property. Margaret's face crumpled. Please, Mr. Hamilton, I've worked here for 8 years. And in 8 years, you should have learned that I don't tolerate disrespect toward people under my protection. His gaze swept the remaining staff. Anyone else have opinions about Ms. Baker's suitability? Silence. Absolute. Terrified. Then get back to work. They scattered like startled birds. Leonard turned to Hannah, who was still frozen by the counter. His expression softened marginally. Are you all right? You didn't have to do that. Yes, he said simply, I did. This is your home now. Anyone who makes you feel otherwise doesn't belong here. He left before she could respond, but not before she saw something in his eyes that made her chest tighten. He hadn't defended her out of obligation or pity. He'd defended her because he cared. That night, Angel came to her room before bed. Daddy fired Margaret and James. I know. Good, Angel said fiercely. They were mean to you. Nobody gets to be mean to you. Hannah pulled the little girl into a hug, but over Angel's shoulder, she was thinking about Leonard, about the loneliness in his eyes and the way he'd said, "You're home," like he meant it, about how dangerous it was to start wanting something she couldn't have. The dress arrived in a box the size of a small coffin, wrapped in tissue paper that probably cost more than Hannah's old monthly salary. She stared at it on her bed like it might bite. Mr. Hamilton requests your presence at the annual charity gala this Saturday. James's replacement had informed her that morning. A car will take you to the boutique at 2 for your fitting. I don't need to go to a gala. I'm Angel's nanny. Mr. Hamilton insists. He said, and I quote, Angel needs to see that the people who matter to her are valued in public, not just in private. Now Hannah stood in the most expensive boutique she'd ever entered, watching a team of stylists circle her like surgeons preparing for a difficult operation. We'll need to let this out here, one murmured, tugging at fabric. The proportions are all wrong, another said, not unkindly, but Hannah heard the unspoken anyway, for her body type. The dress was beautiful. Silver lace with elegant beading, the kind of thing that belonged on magazine covers. The kind of thing that belonged on a different body. Mr. Hamilton was very specific about the color, the head stylist said. He said it should complement your eyes. Hannah's throat tightened. Leonard had noticed her eye color, had thought about what would look good on her. The realization made everything worse somehow. 2 hours later, after adjustments and pinning and 3 different pairs of shoes tested, they led her to a private dressing room to see the final result. Hannah stood in front of the 3-way mirror and felt her carefully constructed composure shatter. The dress fit. It actually fit, tailored perfectly to her curves instead of trying to hide them. The silver fabric caught the light, made her skin glow. Her hair had been styled in soft waves, her makeup applied with professional precision. She looked beautiful. She looked like she belonged at a high society gala. And that was the problem. Because the moment she walked into that ballroom, everyone would see what she saw now. A plus-size woman in an expensive dress, desperately trying to fit into a world that had never wanted her. They'd see Leonard Hamilton's charity case, his pity project, the woman he felt sorry for. The tears came before she could stop them, hot and humiliating, smearing the perfect makeup. I can't do this, she whispered to her reflection. I can't. Can't do what? Hannah spun around. Leonard stood in the doorway of the dressing room, still in his 3-piece suit, looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. You can't be in here. I own the boutique. I can be wherever I want. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Why are you crying? I look ridiculous. You look beautiful. I look out of place. Like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life. Hannah gestured at the mirror at herself. This dress is gorgeous. But putting it on me doesn't change what I am. It just makes it more obvious that I don't belong. Leonard was quiet for a long moment, studying her with that intense gaze that made her feel exposed. My late wife, he said finally, was a size 2. Magazine covers, Fashion Week, the works. Everyone said she was the perfect match for me. Perfect image. Perfect breeding. Perfect everything. Hannah didn't understand why he was telling her this. She was also slowly destroying Angel. Saw her as an inconvenience. Too busy with parties and appearances to notice our daughter was withdrawing into herself. Too concerned with maintaining her perfect image to actually be a mother. His jaw tightened. The night she died, she was on her way to meet with my enemies. To sell information about my operations. For money she didn't need. To fuel a lifestyle that was already killing everything real. Leonard. Do you know what I see when I look at you, Hannah? He stepped closer and she couldn't breathe. I see the woman who makes my daughter laugh, who sits on the kitchen floor playing make-believe, who braids her hair with patience I've never witnessed, who turned my house into something that feels like a home. But at the gala, everyone will. Everyone will see what I see. A woman who belongs at my side because she earned it. Not through genetics or dress size or social connections, but by being exactly who she is. He reached up, wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. You're not out of place, Hannah. Everyone else is. They're so busy performing their perfect lives that they've forgotten how to actually live them. They'll judge me. Let them. Their judgment says everything about them and nothing about you. His hand lingered on her face. Besides, anyone who insults you insults Angel. And people who hurt my daughter tend to have very short, very unfortunate business careers. Despite herself, Hannah laughed, a watery, broken sound. That's better, Leonard said softly. Now look at yourself again. Not through their eyes. Through mine. Hannah turned back to the mirror. Leonard stood behind her, tall and commanding, his hand still on her shoulder. In that reflection, she didn't see a woman out of place. She saw a woman protected. Saturday, Leonard said. You'll be on my arm, and everyone will know exactly how much you matter. The Marchetti family dinner was supposed to be neutral ground, a quarterly meeting between the 5 families that controlled the city's underground, held at a restaurant that closed to the public for the evening. Leonard had explained it clinically. Business diplomacy. You'll sit beside me. Say nothing. Just be there. Hannah had worn the silver dress. Angel had kissed her cheek before she left, saying, You look like a princess, Miss Hannah. Now, sitting at a table with men who casually discussed territories and shipments like they were talking about weather, Hannah understood this was a test. They were measuring Leonard through her. Looking for weakness. Vittorio Marchetti sat at the head of the table, his daughter Isabella to his right. She was everything Hannah wasn't, willowy, dark-haired, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than a car. She'd been watching Hannah all evening with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Leonard, Isabella said during the second course, her voice carrying across the table, I heard you hired a new. What was it? Nanny. The table went quiet. Hannah felt every pair of eyes shift to her. I did, Leonard said, his tone neutral but his hand tightening on his whiskey glass. How progressive of you. Isabella's smile sharpened. Bringing staff to family dinners. Though I suppose when you spend so much time with the help, lines get blurred. Isabella, her father warned quietly. I'm just making conversation, Papa. She turned her attention fully to Hannah. You must be very good with children. Though I have to say I'm surprised Leonard chose someone so unconventional. The Hamilton family has always valued appearances. Hannah's face burned. She kept her eyes on her plate, willing herself invisible. Careful, Leonard said. The word was soft. Lethal. I meant it as a compliment, Isabella continued, feigning innocence. It takes confidence to work in a household like Leonard's, when you don't exactly fit the traditional mold. All those beautiful people coming and going. It must be intimidating. That's enough, Vittorio snapped. But Isabella wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a stage whisper meant for the entire table. Though between us, darling, if you're trying to blend in with Leonard's world, you might consider. Leonard's fist hit the table with enough force to rattle every glass. The restaurant went silent. Waiters froze mid-step. The other family heads stopped eating. Finish that sentence, Leonard said, standing slowly. And your father will be shopping for a new heir. Isabella paled. Vittorio stood as well, hands raised. Leonard, she's young, she doesn't. She doesn't what? Understand that insulting the woman under my protection is insulting me. Leonard's voice was ice and murder. She doesn't grasp that disrespecting someone I value is an act of war? It was a joke. Does anyone at this table see me laughing? No one spoke. Hannah wanted to sink through the floor. Wanted to grab Leonard's arm and tell him it didn't matter. She was used to it. But she was frozen in place, watching this powerful man ready to burn the city down over words she'd heard 1,000 times before. Your daughter, Leonard continued, addressing Vittorio directly, just declared open season on my household, on my choices, on my family. Family. Isabella's voice cracked. She's your nanny. She's whatever I say she is. Leonard's hand moved to Hannah's shoulder, protective and possessive. And what I'm saying right now is that she's worth more than your entire bloodline. Anyone who questions that can test me. Please. I'm in the mood. The threat hung in the air like smoke. These men understood violence the way others understood chess. And Leonard had just offered them a game with only one outcome. Vittorio recovered first. My daughter will apologize. I don't want her apology. Leonard pulled out his phone, dialed a number. Marcus? The Marchetti shipping contracts we discussed? Cancel them. All of them. Effective immediately. Leonard, wait. The waterfront properties they lease from us? Find new tenants. Triple the rate if the Marchettis want to negotiate. That's millions of dollars. Should have thought of that before your daughter decided my personal life was her business. He ended the call, turned to Hannah. We're leaving. Leonard, please, Hannah whispered. It's not worth. You are worth everything. He said it loud enough for the entire table to hear. And anyone who doesn't understand that is no ally of mine. He offered her his arm. Hannah took it with shaking hands, letting him guide her through a restaurant full of dangerous men who were learning exactly what happened when someone made her cry. Outside, in the cool night air, Leonard finally looked at her. Really looked at her. I'm sorry, he said. I should have warned you they'd test me through you. You didn't have to do that. The contracts, the properties. Business is replaceable. You're not. Hannah stared at him, at this man who just risked a war for her honor, and felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Why? She whispered. Leonard's thumb brushed her cheek, the same gesture from the boutique. Because you matter. And I'm tired of pretending you don't. Hannah packed her bags at 3 in the morning, moving silently through the room that had become home. 3 months. That's how long she'd lasted before she became the liability she'd always feared she'd be. The Marchetti incident had rippled through Leonard's world. 2 other families had reached out, questioning his judgment. Business deals had stalled. She'd overheard his advisors arguing that he was distracted, that his emotional decisions were making him vulnerable. All because of her. Angel's door was closed when Hannah passed it. She didn't let herself look too long. If she thought about leaving that little girl, she'd never make it out of the house. She made it to the front entrance before Leonard's voice stopped her. Going somewhere? He stood at the top of the grand staircase in pajama pants and a t-shirt she'd never seen him wear. No armor. No 3-piece suit. Just a man who looked like he hadn't slept. I was going to leave a note, Hannah said quietly. A note. He descended the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. After 3 months of building a life here, you were going to leave my daughter a note? It's better this way. Better for whom? For you. For Angel. For your business. Hannah gripped her suitcase handle tighter. I've been here 3 months and already I'm causing problems. The Marchettis, the canceled contracts, your advisors questioning your decisions. My advisors question everything. It's their job. They're questioning you because of me. Because I don't fit. Because every time you take me somewhere, people see exactly what I am. A nanny who doesn't belong in your world. And what world is that? Leonard reached the bottom of the stairs, standing between her and the door. The world of men who value image over substance, who measure worth in dress sizes. That world can burn. That world is your world, Hannah said, her voice breaking. And I'm a liability in it. You almost started a war over an insult I've heard 1,000 times before. You're bleeding money because of me. And eventually, you'll resent me for it. Resent you. He moved closer and she had to look up to hold his gaze. Hannah, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. A daughter who laughs. A home that doesn't feel like a mausoleum. A reason to come back every night that has nothing to do with business or power, or any of the things I've spent 20 years building. But I'm not. The words caught in her throat, all the shame and self-loathing she'd carried for 32 years rising up to choke her. I'm too curvy for a man like you, Leonard. I'm not the kind of woman people expect to see on your arm. When we go places together, they whisper. They judge. They wonder what you're thinking. Let them wonder. You don't understand. Tears spilled over, hot and humiliating. I've spent my entire life being too much. Too big. Too visible. Taking up too much space. And I thought maybe here, just being Angel's nanny, I could make myself useful without being seen. But you keep putting me in situations where everyone looks at me and sees exactly what I've always feared they see. Someone who doesn't belong. Leonard's jaw tightened. What do you think they see? The fat nanny who got ideas above her station. The woman who tricked her way into a powerful man's life. The charity case who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention she gets. And what do you think I see? Eventually, the same thing they do. That's what always happens, Leonard. People who claim they don't care about appearances always care eventually. When the novelty wears off and they realize what they've settled for. Settled for. His voice turned dangerous. You think I settled? I think you're lonely. I think you wanted someone who was good with Angel and I happened to be there. But loneliness isn't enough to build something on. And eventually you'll wake up and realize you could have had anyone. I don't want anyone. He grabbed her arms, not rough but firm, forcing her to look at him. I want you. Do you understand that? Not despite who you are. Because of who you are. You don't mean that. My late wife was everything society expected. Perfect body. Perfect pedigree. Perfect smile. She was also poisoning my daughter with neglect and selling my family to my enemies. Perfect on the outside. Rotten within. His grip tightened. You think I give a damn what the Marchettis or anyone else thinks about your body? You think I care about their whispers? They're parasites, Hannah. They measure worth in appearances because they have no substance themselves. But I'm not what people picture when they think of. When they think of what? A mafia boss's woman. He laughed bitter and sharp. Let me tell you what I picture. I picture coming home to find you an angel covered in flour from baking cookies. I picture you reading on the couch with your feet tucked under you while my daughter braids your hair. I picture you standing in my study at midnight, telling me I'm being an idiot because you're the only person in my life brave enough to tell me the truth. Hannah was crying openly now, mascara probably running, face blotchy. Everything she tried to hide showing plainly. I'm not leaving you, Leonard said, softer now. So you need to decide if you're brave enough to stay. 'Cause yes, people will judge. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, there will be Isabella Marchettis at every dinner who think they can use you to hurt me. He wiped her tears with his thumbs. But I will burn down every single person who makes you feel like you're anything less than extraordinary. And eventually, maybe you'll start to believe me. I don't know how. Then let me show you. The annual Hamilton Charity Gala was held at the Museum of Fine Arts. 500 guests who represented the intersection of legitimate wealth and dangerous power. Hannah had tried one last time to stay home. Leonard had simply said, Angel's coming. She needs you there. So Hannah wore the silver dress and let herself be led into a room full of people who looked at her like she was a fascinating mistake. The whispers started immediately. Is that the nanny? I heard he's actually dating her. Can you imagine? Poor Angel. Having to see her father parade around with that. Leonard's hand tightened on her waist. Ignore them. But Hannah couldn't ignore Isabella Marchetti holding court near the champagne fountain, her red dress and cruel smile drawing a crowd. Couldn't ignore the way conversations stopped when she and Leonard walked past. Couldn't ignore feeling like a circus attraction. Come see the plus-size woman who thought she belonged in Cinderella's castle. Angel, wearing a navy dress and holding Hannah's other hand, squeezed her fingers. You look beautiful, Miss Hannah. Thank you, sweetheart. I mean it. You're the prettiest person here. Everyone else looks mean. Out of the mouths of children. The evening crawled forward with excruciating politeness, people smiling to Leonard's face while their eyes said what their mouths wouldn't. Hannah endured it because Leonard stayed beside her, a wall of silent protection, and because Angel wouldn't let go of her hand. Then Isabella approached with a microphone and a smile like poisoned honey. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention?" The room quieted. "As you know, the Hamilton Gala has been a tradition for 20 years, celebrating excellence in our community." She paused, her eyes finding Hannah in the crowd. "This year we're honored to have some unexpected additions to the Hamilton family circle." Leonard went rigid beside her. "I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge Hannah Baker, who has worked so hard to, shall we say, integrate herself into Leonard's household." Isabella's smile was pure malice. "It's truly inspiring to see someone so determined to overcome their limitations." The room held its breath. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others leaned in, hungry for blood. Hannah felt her face burn, felt every insecurity she'd ever had crystallize into this single moment. She started to step back, to remove herself before she caused another scene, before Leonard had to defend her again. But Angel let go of her hand. The little girl walked straight up to Isabella, grabbed the microphone and pulled with surprising strength. Isabella, shocked, let go. Angel turned to face the crowd, small and fierce in her navy dress. "Stop being mean to Miss Hannah." The room went completely silent. "My mommy was pretty like you," Angel continued, her voice clear and steady. "She had perfect hair and perfect dresses and everybody said she was perfect for Daddy. But she didn't love me. She didn't read me stories or make pancakes or braid my hair. She didn't stay when I had nightmares. She left me alone all the time." Hannah's heart cracked open. Leonard stood frozen. His daughter speaking truths he tried to protect her from. "Miss Hannah isn't pretty like you," Angel said to Isabella, and Hannah felt the words like knives. "She's better. She's warm. She makes me laugh. She stays when I'm sad. She's not too big, you're just too small. Too small to understand that being beautiful on the outside doesn't matter if you're ugly on the inside." Someone in the crowd gasped. Isabella's face had gone white. "Miss Hannah is the best person I know," Angel said louder now, addressing the entire ballroom. "And if you can't see that, you're just stupid." "Angel!" Leonard finally moved, reaching for his daughter. But Angel wasn't done. She looked up at her father with tears streaming down her face. "She's not too curvy for a boss, Daddy. She's just too big for their small hearts." She turned back to the crowd. "And she's my mother now. Mine. So stop being mean or leave." The microphone feedback screeched as Angel dropped it and ran back to Hannah, throwing her arms around her waist. Hannah caught her, holding tight, aware that 500 people were staring and not caring even a little bit. Leonard walked through the silent crowd until he stood in front of them both. He looked at Hannah, at his daughter clinging to her, at the tears on both their faces. Then he cupped Hannah's face in both hands and kissed her. Not a polite kiss. Not a performance. Claiming. Promise. A public declaration that silenced every whisper, every judgment, every cruel word. When he pulled back, the room was still silent. "Anyone," Leonard said, his voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom, "who has a problem with the woman I love can settle it with me personally. Anyone who insults her, mocks her, or questions her place in my life will find themselves without business, without protection, and without mercy." He turned to Isabella specifically. "That includes you. Your family's contracts are permanently terminated. Consider it a lesson in knowing when to keep your mouth shut." Vittorio Marchetti moved to protest, but the look on Leonard's face stopped him cold. Leonard took Hannah's hand, then Angel's, and walked them toward the exit. The crowd parted like water, nobody brave enough to speak. Outside, under the museum lights, Angel looked up at both of them. "Did I do good?" Hannah dropped to her knees, not caring about the dress, and pulled the little girl into her arms. "You did perfect. I meant what I said. You're my mom now. If that's what you want, sweetheart." "It is." Angel looked at her father. "Right, Daddy." Leonard crouched beside them both, his hand finding the back of Hannah's neck. Right. If she'll have us. Hannah looked between them. This broken little girl and this dangerous man who'd somehow become her entire world. I'm still not what people expect, she whispered. Good, Leonard said. I'm done with expectations. I'm choosing truth. Choosing substance. Choosing you. And for the first time in her life, Hannah believed she might actually be enough. 6 months later, Hannah stood in the kitchen with flour in her hair and Angel giggling beside her, and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd looked in a mirror with shame. Miss Hannah, Mom, you're supposed to fold the dough, not punch it. I am folding it. Aggressively. Angel dissolved into laughter, the sound filling the kitchen like sunlight. Outside, through the bay windows, Leonard was on the phone pacing the garden. Business call. Something about shipping routes and territorial agreements. The dangerous world he lived in hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted to make room for this. For them. The Hamilton estate had changed in 6 months. Angel's artwork covered the refrigerator, now messy, colorful, alive. The formal dining room they'd eaten in once was abandoned in favor of the kitchen island, where they could sit close and steal bites from each other's plates. The mansion that had felt like a museum had become a home. And Hannah had stopped apologizing for taking up space in it. Daddy's been on that call for an hour, Angel observed, kneading her own small portion of dough. Think he's handling the Castellano situation? Hannah blinked. How do you know about the Castellano situation? I hear things. Angel's smile was pure innocence. I'm 9 now. Practically an adult. 9 going on 40, Hannah muttered, but she was smiling. The kitchen door opened. Leonard walked in, phone away, tie loosened, looking at them both with an expression that still made Hannah's breath catch. 6 months and she still wasn't used to being looked at like she was something precious. The Castellanos agreed to our terms, he announced. Because you're terrifying, Angel said matter-of-factly. Because I'm persuasive. He moved behind Hannah, arms wrapping around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. What are we making? Cinnamon rolls for tomorrow's breakfast, Hannah said, leaning back into him. 6 months ago, she would have tensed at the contact, worried about how her body felt against his. Now she just let herself be held. You have flour in your hair. Angel threw it at me. She did not. I would never. Angel's grin said otherwise. Leonard's hand splayed across Hannah's stomach, possessive and tender. I have something for you. If it's another dress, I'm going to start thinking you have a problem. Not a dress. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Hannah's heart stopped. Angel stopped pretending to knead dough. Leonard, I'm not asking you to marry me, he said quickly. Not yet. Angel and I discussed it, and we both agree you need more time to get used to the idea that we're not going anywhere. That this is permanent. We're very patient, Angel added seriously. Hannah's eyes burned with tears, the good kind, the kind she was learning to accept instead of hide. But I wanted you to have this. Leonard opened the box, revealing a ring that was beautiful but not overwhelming. Elegant. Substantial. Real. It was my grandmother's. She wore it for 53 years, through wars and poverty and my grandfather's incredibly poor business decisions. She sounds like my kind of woman, Hannah whispered. She would have loved you. Would have said you're exactly what this family needed. Someone with enough substance to anchor us, enough strength to call us on our nonsense, and enough heart to make us remember what we're building all this power for. He slipped the ring onto her right hand. Not an engagement ring yet. Promise. That your family. That this is real. That 6 months from now, 6 years from now, 60 years from now, I'll still be standing in this kitchen watching you bake with our daughter and feeling like the luckiest man alive. Hannah looked down at the ring at her hand, the same hand she'd spent years trying to hide, to make smaller, to apologize for. Leonard's grandmother's ring fit perfectly. I'm still going to have days where I don't believe I deserve this, she said honestly. I know. And I'll spend those days proving you wrong. He kissed her temple. Besides, Angel made me promise to remind you whenever you get like that. It's true. I made him practice his speech 3 times, Angel confirmed. And I have a whole list of reasons why you're the best mom in the world. It's very long. Alphabetized. Hannah laughed through tears, pulling Angel into the embrace. The three of them stood there in the kitchen, covered in flour, the cinnamon rolls forgotten, and it was perfect. Not perfect like magazine covers or society expectations. Perfect like truth. Like choosing each other every day. Like building something real in a world that valued appearances over everything. I love you, Hannah said. To Leonard. To Angel. To this life she'd stumbled into while trying to run away from herself. We know, Angel said, then added with Leonard's exact tone and inflection, we're very lovable. Leonard laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest into Hannah's back. She's been spending too much time with me. Impossible, Hannah said. There's no such thing as too much time with either of you. Later that night, after the cinnamon rolls were baking and Angel was in bed, Leonard found Hannah standing at the bedroom window, looking out over the estate. What are you thinking? He asked. That I spent 32 years believing I had to be smaller to deserve love. Quieter. Less visible. Taking up less space. And now? Hannah turned to face him, wearing one of his shirts, her hair messy, no makeup, completely herself. Now I understand that I'm not too much. I'm exactly enough. The right size for this life. For you. For Angel. Leonard crossed the room, pulled her close. You're not just the right size for my love, Hannah. You're the only size. The only shape. The only person. He tilted her chin up. You saved us. My daughter. Me. This house. Everything that matters. We saved each other, she corrected. Then I propose we keep doing that. For the next 60 years or so. Only 60? I'm being conservative. Didn't want to scare you. Hannah smiled, rose on her toes, kissed the man who'd taught her that love wasn't about fitting into someone else's expectations. It was about finding someone whose expectations were built around exactly who you already were. You're going to propose soon, aren't you? She whispered against his lips. Thinking about it. And you're going to do it in front of everyone who ever doubted us. Definitely. Good, Hannah said. Let them watch. Let them see exactly what a mafia boss's queen looks like. She looks like you, Leonard said. She's always looked like you. And finally, after 32 years of being told she was too much, Hannah believed him.